I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things, a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus. Good evening, Bowling Green, and hello to everyone on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMar, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, and together Rebecca and I are going to craft yet another wonderful episode of For a Green Future. We did it before, and we can do it again.
Exactly.
Yes. And For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment, and we talk about them in the ways that they affect you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and your family, and the birds and the bees and the fish and the trees and everyone and everything, because, like it or not, all of us are wrapped up together on this fantastic planet called Earth. And we have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to just chat for the next 10 minutes or so, and please feel free to call in 877-909-1007. We'll get you right on the air. And then we have an interview with Meta, believe it or not, the company that owns Facebook, because they're putting a new data center in just north of Bowling Green, south of Perrysburg there. And so sent them a bunch of questions about their new data center, ecological questions, and they actually responded via email, so we won't have a live voice. I'll be doing the voice of both sides there.
A dramatic reading.
Yes. And I thought about doing it in like a robot voice, but Rebecca has vetoed that. So
I don't think it's good.
Nah,
Maybe it would have been.
I think you're right.
We can do it again next week if there's a lot of public demand for that.
Yeah, if there's demand.
In the robot voice.
I agree. If we get a lot of like emails or texts saying you
Right.
should do to get a robot voice.
I think
okay.
we're not going to, though. What do you think?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, then after our interview with Meta, it's advertisers and patrons. And then, Rebecca, it's your turn at the mic, and what will you be talking about this week?
I will be talking about Dame's Rocket versus Phlox. Know the difference.
Okay. And then it's ecological news, and a fair bit of good news this week. Worth listening to. It's not all doom and gloom this week, and some of it's just kind of interesting. So that's it. That's our show, and we're looking forward to spending the next hour with you. And so, as I said, the beginning of the show, where we just sort of chat. And one of the things people, of course, always like to chat about is the weather. And it is cool right now. It's, according to my cell phone, it's about 14 degrees cooler than average temperature today.
It's pretty nice, though. We had a beautiful morning walkie. It was all peaceful. All the birds were singing.
Yeah.
We had a very nice time. Me and my the little spoiled princess.
Tashi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tashi rumba.
Well, and I'd rather have it a little cool than, massively hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more fun.
But of course, I've got to remind everybody that just because it's cool here right now, globally speaking, the temperatures are still way above average.
that's why we call it global warming and not just, Toledo warming. So just cool weather here does not mean cool weather everywhere. And in fact, up on the poles, up at the North Pole, it's incredibly higher than average. So it's kind of like the polar vortex is sort of slipped down here into North America, and it's warming up even more there.
We're having a lovely Siberian spring. Too bad Siberia isn't having it.
Yeah. Yeah. But this week it was nice outside, and so like a lot of people, went out and did a lot of yard work this week. And in fact, I did something kind of fun. I planted a whole bunch of pawpaw trees, which I planted 17 sprouted pawpaw seeds, and hopefully some of those will actually grow up to be trees. They're a native fruit. In fact, they're considered to be the only native fruit tree of North America, and it's just part of a whole. I'm this year. Last year's gardening for me was disastrous. Okay, no time for weeding. I think my whole crop. I think I got like a couple. What did I harvest? I harvested a few radishes here. Oh, some cherry tomatoes and some peppers, like 3 peppers. That
There
was
you
my
go.
whole.
And now I have a song about pawpaws stuck in my head. Thank
really?
you, Joe. Yeah.
Oh.
Way down yonder in the pawpaw patch.
Okay. But another thing that is happening in my yard, in addition to planting trees, is, of course, we are battling trees. We're battling these trees of heaven.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And as promised by the internet, we cut down a whole bunch of them last year. And so the root system has responded by sending up, thousands and thousands of little tree of heaven seedlings.
Do you not want to go to heaven?
I'm not sure that's how you get there.
Oh, okay.
Because, it's an Asian tree, so...
Your backyard is heavenly now, and you don't like it.
Well, I got to say, the smell of a tree of heaven is not heavenly. It's
You got to
kinda
go
unpleasant.
meet Kuan Yin.
Oh, Kuan Yin? Who's
yeah,
that?
the Buddhist. She's a bodhisattva,
Oh,
and also a traditional Chinese goddess
okay. I did not know that.
of
So-
compassion.
of compassion. Oh, yeah.
She's a nice lady.
Well, that'd be the best goddess to meet then. would
Yes,
she?
yes.
Okay. All right. Well, something to look forward to.
Very
So, yeah. So, unfortunately, we've made the decision to actually use the glyphosate because my son is really committed to getting rid of all these trees of heaven. So, the internet is kind of divided on whether it's better to sort of girdle the tree and paint the trunk so that it absorbs the glyphosate down into the root system, or to like cut it really low and paint the stump for the same reason. Probably we're going to go with the second one just because.
Would curing a panda for your backyard, would that help at all?
No, pandas
No.
don't like tree of heaven.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, they're and like I say, they're smelly and they really don't taste very good
Just
to anything
mostly bamboo.
except the spotted lanternfly.
Oh,
it's the
that's great.
Yeah, it's the spotted, literally the spotted lanternfly's favorite tree.
Oh,
And,
brother.
in fact, spotted lanternfly traps that they're developing use the tree of heaven scent to attract,
Okay.
even more than like a pheromone for like a female spotted lanternfly. Spotted lanternflies of all sexes and genders love trees of heaven. So
Well, most animals really love food. Okay, I knew a dog that had been given meth in the past,
meth. Oh my.
and 100% of them will get super excited about food more than whatever human thing you can give them, alcohol or whatever, and they'll be like, "You got a snack."
Oh, okay.
Food is their ultimate drug for animals.
So they're a little more into it. Yeah, it was interesting. I just had a conversation with a guy who had an alcoholic goat, and he talked about it as if it were some just thing that happened. But I think he was like an enabler because
Or
he was the one who
neighbor-
supplied the
yeah,
goat with
what was
alcohol.
there like an alcohol springing up in his ear? Yeah, we apparently we I think what would be really cool if they can incorporate it into the lemur back behind the scenes tours like we went on, is if you could feed them those centipedes that they like,
Uh-huh.
that they, they bite, they rub it all over themselves as bug spray, and then they like bite off part of it and
So you
and
want to
get high.
you want to be drinking buddies with a lemur is what you're telling me.
There you go. Yeah.
All
The
right.
problem is I don't want to handle giant centipedes.
Okay. Well,
So
the love of nature, appears in different ways for different people. So, however it works for you, that's
There you go.
great. And
If
so,
you're deranged, that's the kind of thing you might relate
Yeah.
to nature. Yeah.
and how does it work for you folks? 877-909-1007. What's your favorite way of relating to nature? That is, is gardening it for you? Because that is it for a lot of people. I have a
Yeah.
close friend who's, this past week has put like 30 hours into her yard pulling out invasive species and just sort of tackling what she wants there versus what she doesn't want there. And so, does that do it for you? Or like Rebecca, do you need a drunken weekend with lemurs to really get into it? So
Yeah.
give us a call, 877-909-1007. All right, so as promised, a little bit of a journey getting this interview. Meta is opening a huge new data center just north of Bowling Green, and it takes up hundreds of acres, and they're redoing the whole topography. They've dug out huge lakes, little lakes, huge ponds, little lakes. I'm not sure what the line is between a pond and a lake, but these things are pretty close. And so they were nice enough to answer a bunch of questions that I sent them. So here we go. First question, could you please go into more detail about the clean energy the data center will use? What kind of power does this mean exactly? How much wind, solar, etc.? And the answer is, we're proud that this data center will be matched with 100% clean and renewable energy. We disclose the energy consumption for all our facilities on an annual basis, and will do so for this location when it's operational. And then it gives a website that you can go to see what all Meta's data centers use
So what,
for
they
power.
don't know how much power it's going to use yet? Let's just put it up and see how much power,
Well,
and we'll worry about the power after that.
it's a little bit of a hedged kind of answer because, strictly speaking, they said 100% clean and renewable. And clean energy, there's a number of definitions now that, some places define gas power as clean, some places define nuclear as clean. And so saying clean and renewable is a little worrisome, but it's possible it'll all be renewable because, frankly, renewable is the cheapest, the most economical source of energy in the world today, which is why renewables are just crushing all the other sorts of power being built around the world. In the U.S. last year, I believe the figure is 94% of all new power plants were either wind or solar. So this was a little bit of a non-answer, but at least they didn't say, coal. They didn't say we're going to put a coal plant on the location. So that's nice. Next question. Will the center have its own clean energy generation? That is, will there be solar panels on the roof? And I mentioned that they're probably aware one of the largest solar manufacturers in the country, First Solar, is literally just a couple miles away from this data center. And this general sort of answer, we work closely with local utilities and renewable project developers to add new renewable energy projects to local grid. Important factors for us to include when the project will be constructed and how much energy it can generate once constructed. So they're saying they want to encourage new renewable power, which is great. But yeah, it's not a specific answer of like how many megawatts and where and when. But so also, so the next question, they'll be partnering with Toledo Edison, a First Energy company. I thought they might be using Bowling Green's municipal utility since they're like right on the border. But no, they're going with Toledo Edison, which could well mean they've done a side deal to get power directly from Davis-Besse, First Energy's nuclear plant. But we'll see. I guess we'll have to see. I like the next question. How much water will the center need? What will be the source? And what will happen to the water after it's used for cooling?
Interesting question.
Yes, this is probably my favorite answer. At the Bowling Green Data Center, we plan to use a closed-loop water system, a cooling design that uses water efficiently. We disclose the water withdrawal for all our facilities on an annual basis, and we'll do so for this location once it's operational. But closed-loop systems, this basically suggests that they're just going to take the initial batch of water and just use that over and over again. And I'm thinking that maybe that's what all the huge ponds that they're doing
Yeah,
is
that
for.
could be. Yep.
That they're going to,
Cooling ponds.
like take it out of the ponds and put it back into the ponds. So that's kind of encouraging. Next question, will there be any attempts to use the grounds to benefit nature, that is plantings for pollinators, etc.? And the response was, as a general point, we are thoughtful in the landscaping of our data center and strive to use native vegetation where possible to reduce irrigation demand. Then, is Meta still committed to having a minimal environmental impact, or has that corporate policy changed? Because, a lot of corporations are being pressured by the current administration to drop things like environmental impact mitigation.
Can't you just be as destructive as possible? Come on.
Yeah,
come
I mean,
on.
that's basically what the
Dear
Trump
Lord.
administration is urging a lot of companies. But Meta says, yes, we design and build our data center with efficiency, flexibility, and sustainability in mind. We're extremely proud that our data center buildings achieve LEED Gold certification, which is basically they're conserving energy to the highest level suggested by the government. And so my final question, and regular listeners know that this is almost always my final question, is there anything you'd like to add? And so here's the quote. We are excited to make Bowling Green our home, and we are committed to playing a positive role and investing in this community. When looking at other Meta data centers, including our new Albany data center, over the long term, we typically invest hundreds of millions of dollars in each project, which in turn supports hundreds of construction and operational jobs. We make a concerted effort to source labor materials locally and provide substantial contributions directly to the community. The $800 million investment represents our capital investment, including construction, equipment, and connectivity costs, and more than $28 million in local infrastructure improvements, including roads and water infrastructure.
Translation, rent's going to go up.
Well, so that was our interview with Meta. What do you think? Does it sound good to you, or are you concerned that this is going in place locally? Give us a call, 877-909-1007. This is part of a boom around the country for these data centers. And actually, there's some suggestion that maybe the requirements for these data centers is actually being way overblown, because they're being used as a justification for building things like small modular reactors and new gas and coal plants. But there's some evidence being suggested by the Rocky Mountain Institute that says even in the places where a lot of data centers have gone in, demand is actually still barely ticking over, because putting more solar on people's roofs actually still reduces demand. So the increase in solar is reducing demand almost at the same rate that these new data centers are trying to increase demand. And so it may just be that it all sort of cancels out.
Among the bizarre and nonsensical things that I like to look at on the internet is furniture catalogs.
Okay.
And there has been a rise in adult bunk beds or loft beds with a workstation under them.
Okay. Interesting.
And also, I read this thing about young Gen Z workers are choosing to live in pods, which is more or less a glorified flop house.
Okay.
It's like
So-
a big warehouse with a bunch of bunk beds in it. So, okay, and now you've got a workstation there under your adult bunk bed. You're like, does it have bars around it? How does this work? Are you actually chained to the desk?
So-
I'm frightened.
So what you're suggesting is this might be part of why demand for energy is actually dropping, because if you could just stay at home and do your workstation
True,
under your
but
bunk bed,
I'm
you're
afraid
not.
that's not going to. I'm afraid it's for places like San Francisco where where people are living in box trucks, like
Okay,
people
yeah.
with good jobs.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that does reduce
Only
demand, actually,
instead,
doesn't it?
you're all going to be like living at work in your bunk bed above your little desk. I don't know that that's true. They just creep me out.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for our interview with Meta. And now on to another favorite part of the show for me, our advertisers and patrons. Imagine a place where nature meets adventure, where you can climb, paddle, fish, and explore. That place, it's right here in Wood County. The Wood County Park District is here to protect, preserve, and inspire. We conserve natural and cultural treasures so that you can enjoy the outdoors like never before. By maintaining green spaces, providing fun programs, restoring wildlife habitats, and leading outdoor adventures. Want to connect with nature? Try your hand at archery, bouldering, geocaching, paddling, rappelling, and more. Whether you're seeking experience or a peaceful retreat, our parks are open every day from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset all year round. Come explore, get outside, experience nature. Your parks, your adventures waiting for you. Find us online at wcparks.org or follow on Instagram, Facebook, or X, or call 419-353-1897. The Wood County Park District, preserving nature, creating adventure, and inspiring a greener future. And of course, For a Green Future is also brought to you by our patrons. And our patrons are fantastic people who've gone to patreon.com. That's Patreon. There they signed up to give us a little monthly donation. They scrolled through and looked at a level of funding that matches their budget. And every month, a little bit comes out of their accounts and comes over to us. And that's how we can afford to keep this program on the air. And I would call us an increasingly vital program because of all the stuff that's going around on the world, and some of the stories that only we cover, and some of the things that you'll only hear about here. It's becoming more and more important to have this alternative. So we're asking you to go to patreon.com and look for a Green Future. And a public service announcement this week. Speaking of the Wood County Park District, they have a whole bunch of opportunities in June for volunteering because they're doing a whole bunch of cool stuff, and so they need volunteers to help them. One is Nurture the Nursery, and that is something you can do at the J.C. Ruthinger Memorial Park, which is where they grow all the native plants that they sell later in the year and that they use to restore the prairies and forests that are part of the Wood County Park District. They're also having a potluck on June 24th. That's Tuesday, 10 a.m. to noon. So it's a good time to volunteer with the nursery at the Wood County Park District. They're having Paddle the Pond on June 8th, which is where you get in a kayak and go paddling around. They're having a nature camp for kids on June 11th. And again, they're looking for volunteers to help with that, and also volunteers to help with their Family Camping Fun Night, which is June 28th at William Henry Harrison Park in Pemberville. And finally, it's interesting, they have a Master Gardener program. In 2025, their program has actually filled up and sold out. But if you're interested in becoming a Master Gardener, you can still get on the waiting list for 2026, which gives you some idea of just how popular that is. So those are all of things that you can do with the Wood County Park District. And as we say, you can go to wcparks.org to get more details and to sign up. Okay, Rebecca, that brings us to your part of the show, Phlox versus Dame Rockets. Go ahead.
Okie dokie. Well, this is about two very beautiful and very similar flowers.
Uh-huh.
The first one's Dame's Rocket, a.k.a. Hesperus nationalis, Hesperus with I-S at the end, which means evening star in Greek.
Uh-huh.
In mythology, Hesperus with a U.S. on the end, was the son of Venus. And and one of the names for it is gillyflower. I swear I read in a Elizabethan murder mystery where, Queen Elizabeth solves murders or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I read this, and it mentioned that the Elizabethans used them as mouthwash, and they are indeed edible. I checked that out. I could not confirm that they were used as mouthwash, but they are edible.
So that's Dame's rockets.
Yeah,
Edible.
Dame's rockets.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
they're in the same family as mustard and cabbage. They are biennial. Those are those ones that grow the first year and then reproduce the second year, and then they're done.
Mhm.
They're native to Eurasia, and they have a tendency to escape cultivation in some areas and become a weed species. So they are sort of considered invasive. I don't get the impression that they're super fast growers, though, so that's good anyway. Um, they smell stronger in the evening is one reason that they're called the evening star, which the evening star is Venus in the evening, basically.
Uh-huh.
That's what it's traditionally called in a lot of folk traditions. And some varieties are perennials, just a few, I think. They can be, mostly they're purple, but they can also be white, pink, or they can have a mix of colors within the same flower, which is weird.
Mhm.
And then we have phlox. Phlox is a genus of 70 species.
Ooh.
They're all annual or perennial. They have cluster flower heads and a vanilla clove fragrance. They're resistant to mildew and deer. So if your yard is marshy and has a lot of deer in it, they might be for you. The name means flame in Greek, possibly because they have such bright colors. I saw them, and in my opinion, they are the prettier of the two flowers, because I like things that really give your rods and cones a workout. I was born too early for clown core, essentially. So they are my kind of thing. But they're native to, let's see, the northern hemisphere and South America, mostly North America. There's just one of them in Siberia, and there's area of a lot of diversity of different types of phlox in the American West, in the North American West. They like alpine tundra, woodland, and prairie, and low-density forests. Open woodlands. Open woodlands. Oh, sorry. Open woodlands are low-density forests. That's I looked it up. They're just forests where the trees are kind of spaced out, so you can have more things growing on the ground.
Some light getting down to the forest floor there.
Yep, yeah. And the difference is, let's see, the Dame's rocket has alternate leaves and 4 petals, whereas phlox have opposite leaves and 5 petals. So you really got to look to find out which you've got. So phlox is probably better from an ecological standpoint, and as it says in the Holy Bible, may your flocks prosper and your descendants be as numerous as the stars, unless you don't want to be a farmer with a lot of kids.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah. So that 4 leaves Dame's rockets, 5 leaves phlox. Okay,
Right.
Got it.
Oh, no, petals.
Petals.
Yeah,
I'm
petals.
sorry. Petals. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, I got to admit that Dave's rocket is one of the prettiest invasives that there is.
Yeah.
So, but all
Phlox
right.
is better, I think.
Yeah, phlox is
Is
better.
prettier, even.
And I do know a lot of people that complain about deer eating everything in their yard. So
Yeah,
for
yeah.
those people, phlox might be a good go-to flower.
You
Oh.
might.
We have a caller. Caller, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
So my question was related to nature.
Okay.
I think it's my favorite way is to observe animals in the wild and have to think about the things they do
Hmm.
to survive, regardless of how outgunned they are, I guess, to use a term, by humans, and like things like you might go in a very well used park that's very overrun with people constantly, and see a small snake or a turtle or tortoise, whatever, I guess. And see, they just amazes me that they persist. They were doing that before, most of them probably before human beings were at least prevalent in this part of the world. And then you got, they just, what of humans? There is no human that I know that I could take out and just set them free, you know, and say, here, go survive. You know, like not likely, right? So it's, I mean, we might have had those skills at one time. I don't know, but it's amazing to me that they can do that. You know, even in this, we consider this the modern, you know, civilized world or whatever, but even little cottontail bunny rabbits are running around. They're doing their thing, and, you know, they'll do their thing whether we're here or not. So
Yeah, they could
So-
take care of themselves as long as we, you know, humans don't mess the whole thing up. But yeah,
yeah, that's it, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty
that's-
cool. So, are you gardening this year? What's your take on that?
Oh my, garden. Nah, I don't have. So I'm a tree person,
Okay.
and so I've got a big, you know, regular size lot, right, Toledo. But I have 2 mature maple trees. I have a red oak that I planted, which is getting there. It's, you know, now about 30 feet tall and has a crown about 30 feet across. And I planted a locust tree, not locust tree, a tulip tree. I've, you know, and I've got a lot of shrubs. So basically, I'm about the trees more than. And I don't have sun stuff, but I do some tomatoes in like pots, which I can put in a certain strategic position, and they don't do great, but they do. And I also have a small strawberry plot, which strawberry plant plot, just 4 by 4 by 4, which that produces a lot of strawberries.
Cool.
You
Yeah,
know,
I love
think about-
strawberries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's my garden.
So did you like Rebecca's red oak report last
You
week?
got to tell me how you got it to that, because it says we're responsible for caring for it. What is your secret?
Well, I live in West North Toledo, and it's really sort of on the band of oak opening Z kind of stuff. It's sandy.
Right.
And oak trees love sandy soil. And so I just planted it. I bought it way back, I think 30 years ago, and it was a substantial tree. It wasn't a seedling. And I just planted it, and there it went. I don't do any special thing like fertilizers or any of that kind of stuff,
Right.
because I don't believe in that. I don't use any chemicals, natural otherwise, on stuff, and it's just flourished. So,
Right.
but they love sandy soil,
All right.
and but it's gonna be a tree that's gonna be giving people shade and everything for
Aw.
a couple hundred years. So that's
Set
pretty
it and
awesome.
forget it tree.
Cool. All right. Well,
That's right.
well,
All right.
well, thanks for the call.
He mentioned a whole 3 organisms, which are also in my neighborhood and in my yard.
We are.
I was counting.
Great. Okay, on to ecological news. And as promised, the first story is a good one. And that is, and this story actually comes from the World Nuclear News, which is a pro-nuclear publication. So usually I don't quote it, but the title of this story is Reactor Closure Marks Taiwan's Nuclear Exit.
Oopsie.
So not only did they close a nuclear plant, it was the last nuclear plant in Taiwan. And so they join the ranks of the nuclear-free countries, which is most countries. You know, the pro-nuclear lobby kind of has created this impression in people's minds that you must have nuclear plants, but actually only now 31 of the 195 countries in the world have nukes. So the vast majority of countries do not have any nuclear plants, including Taiwan. Yep, they shut down on May 19th, actually just about the time we were doing our show last week, which is nice. The last plant was Unit 2 of the Manshan nuclear power plant, and it was disconnected from the grid. When it was running, it produced 930 megawatts, which was only about 3% of the electricity. And this was one of the main campaign promises of the Democratic Progressive Party, which is running Taiwan right now.
All right.
Unfortunately, their new mix is not,
Isn't it Asian History Month, too?
is it?
I think it is,
Oh,
yeah.
good. Oh, maybe we could talk about that next week.
Because this
We
one
got a
friend of
whole
mine has
month.
been posting about Nanking again.
Okay.
Nanjing, I guess it is.
Unfortunately, they have turned from the wind more back towards fossil, or from the nuclear back towards fossil. Their new mix right now is only 20% renewable, 50% liquefied natural gas, and 30% coal. And so that's not good. They still have to, and that, in fact, that had been their officially stated position, and that went before the referendum, and as a referendum before the voters in 2018, who rejected that. So now they're moving towards a bigger percentage of renewables. Last year, they built 5 gigawatts of gas, but they built 3.5 gigawatts of wind and solar. So they're still very fossil fuel dependent, but they're starting to move in the right. Well, they definitely made a good decision moving away from their nukes. And I think
So today I had a guy do a thing saying that nuclear activists or liberals or somebody, the ultimate insult, get all hysterical when you want to put nuclear waste deep inside a stable geological zone.
uh-huh.
I think some of those stable geological zones are not so stable, and also you have to take it there first, meaning it goes across country, irradiating everything as it goes,
Right.
and also that thing is gonna fill up. Then what you gonna do? How many really stable ecological zones are there?
Yeah, exactly. That has been this fantasy of the pro-nuclear people that, you just dig a hole and stick it in there and you're problem solved.
Yeah.
But whenever they actually do detailed geological studies, what we find is there's almost no such thing really as a stable ecological zone. And once you've pierced a stable ecological zone with tunnels and shafts to lower stuff down, now you've opened it up and water can seep down there from the surface and then fill it up and bring all that radioactive stuff back up over thousands of years. That's the thing that these people who just say, dig a hole and bury it. We're talking about trying to bury something for 1 million years.
Right.
And, we can't do it. It's just impossible. So, all right. Next story. Interesting story from Australia. And this is what in The Guardian on May 18th. Energy Australia apologizes to 400,000 customers and settles greenwashing legal action. And essentially what happened is in 2016, this energy company started offering CO2 carbon offsets, so like you plant a forest and that offsets the carbon that your car is producing or something like that. But what happened is that in court, or not, it didn't quite get to court. They were being taken to court by a group called Parents for Climate. And the reason they filed the lawsuit is because carbon offsets don't actually prevent or undo any damage caused by CO2 emissions. All it does is pull some of the carbon out of the air. But if you're still putting more carbon in, you're still making global warming worse. And so this was a civil lawsuit claiming that they were doing false advertising by creating the impression that just by doing carbon offsets, you're going to help curb or fix global warming.
Which is a load of malarkey.
And so customers signed up and paid extra to go neutral for this offset program. And finally, basically, once it was going to go to court and the truth was going to come out, the Australian energy company settled with the Parent for Climate because they knew once it was in court, it was going to be proven that the whole thing was a scam. And part of it was that they put in some of their claims that it would be reducing emissions. And of course, it does not do that. So, and part of their official apology that they sent to the world, they said, offsets do not prevent or undo harm caused by burning fossil fuels. And so that's good. And so the Parents for Climate lawsuit, their response said that the era of unchecked greenwashing is over.
Yay.
And wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, it would. And I think they're probably still going to try it because they're sneaky little buggers.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was exactly right, but it would be nice, wouldn't it? If
Yes,
we
it
got
would
rid
be
of
lovely.
greenwashing and just
Yes.
had actual green stuff.
Maybe we could actually all tell the truth. Ha ha ha.
Aha. Yes, for a change. Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be cool?
Yeah.
And along the greenwashing theme, our next story comes to us from a website called The Eye Paper, and that was May 18th. And the title is Millions Spent on Hydrogen Buses Left Stuck in Depots Due to Lack of Fuel. And this is a story about what's going on in the UK, but this is actually happening all over the world. And that is this idea that you have buses powered by hydrogen. And they tried this in a number of UK cities, including Liverpool, Aberdeen, and Birmingham. And what they found is that there's a combination of very high maintenance costs, because if you're powering your bus by liquid hydrogen, it's a very tricky substance to work with because it's so cold and it tends to make metal brittle, and stuff like breaks very frequently.
Oopsie.
But the main problem is
So it's going to destroy your engine very quickly and make it brittle and weird, and things fall off.
well, your engine will wear out more quickly because
Right,
it's an
right.
engine designed to run on hydrogen, but all these differences in temperatures going from, it's like 300 degrees below zero. If somebody wants to do a really quick Google search and see what the temperature of liquid hydrogen is, I think it's like 300 degrees below zero, maybe 350. Go from that to burning it, which is hundreds of degrees above zero, and that, whenever you have huge shifts in temperature like that, metal tends to break more quickly. So these things break down a lot.
Metal doesn't like that.
In fact, as a comparison, diesel buses they have what's called availability. And so diesel are 90% available, which means they're down for maintenance about 10% of the time. Electric buses are not far behind. They're 82%, so they're available most of the time, for more than 4/5 of the time. But the hydrogen buses, the data on all the studies is showing that their only availability is only 30%. So like 70% of the time, something has broken and they're down. The fossil fuel lobby loves the idea of hydrogen buses, partially because you can get the hydrogen from green sources, that is solar and wind, and use it to do hydrolysis on water. But you can also get hydrogen from methane, CH4. You break it up with heat and stuff and pull the hydrogen out. And so fossil fuel companies love the idea of hydrogen. But what has happened is that they have failed all around the world. There was a quote from a fellow named David Saban, who's a professor of mechanical engineering at Cambridge, and he said he has a list of 27 failed hydrogen bus projects around the world. And so this is as a result of, there's been like 20 years now of trials and demonstration projects, and a lot of those have been funded by groups like British Petroleum and Shell Oil, and the numbers are not good. So it's looking more and more like the shift is to go from diesel to electric, and not try to put hydrogen in there as a substitute fuel. All right, now this story it's a good story. All right, preface it. This is good news, but it's kind of an exception that is proving the rule. Title is, and this is from electrek.co on May 19th. Title is Trump Reversal Revives Empire Wind, New York's Offshore Energy Giant. So what happened is the Trump administration has stopped all offshore wind development, and all wind and solar development. They just put a kibosh on all of it. But they've reversed themselves on this one, which was a huge project, supposed to be big enough to power 500,000 homes. And it was the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management that Trump ordered to block it. It's a $5 billion project. And it was they were going along. They were building it. It was already 30% complete. And then on April 16th, Trump just ordered it shut down, so they shut down. So what they did was, and there's been no detail on the results of this, they did intense negotiation with the Trump administration. And we're talking the country of Norway, the company Equinor that owns the project, New York State's Governor Kathy Hochul, and all these negotiations happened behind closed doors. So there's no information on why the Trump administration reversed itself in this one case. And, some people have been suggesting that there could be some sort of sweetheart deals made with no details on like who would be getting the money and or what was being done with it. As I said, those are just speculations and allegations. But the fact that the Trump administration reversed itself on this one project, but has continued to block all the other projects and not given any reason for their reversal on the one or, any valid justification for blocking all the rest, does not smell good. It does not pass the smell test.
Yeah.
But it is good that they did reverse themselves on this one. And so there will be, it should be functioning starting to produce power by the end of this year and fully functional by 2017 or 2027. So, all right, that's that story. And we're booking right along, making good time here. Next story. This is a very local story. May 6th, and this was a story that was in ProPublica. Millions of people depend on the Great Lakes water supply. Trump decimated the lab protecting it. And basically, we're talking about the Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory, or GLERL. They literally call it that. And we've had people from GLERL on our show before because they're the ones that sample the lake water and look at the data and make predictions about when and where these algal blooms are going to happen.
Oh, boy.
And how severe they are.
And you like a little heads up with that, as I recall. That way, you find out before you already drank your morning cup of coffee.
That's right. Yeah. So you can actually shut down the intake things before the algae bloom overwhelms it, And so Trump and Musk, so the mumps, as I call them, the Musk Trumps, they cut 35% of the staff there, including a lot of very essential staff members. And they've also slashed the basic budget by so much that they can no longer afford basic supplies like filters and containers to hold the water.
Algal blooms, by the way, are very, very bad for your liver, and it's kind of evenly split. I know sort of equal numbers of people in Toledo who have died of liver cancer and overdoses.
Yeah, it's
so
not good. Either one.
Our
both
livers are.
bad.
It's already an area that's fairly hard on one's liver.
So
we don't need any more assaults on our livers.
Right. So part of the focus of this article was J.D. Vance, because when he was a senator, Ohio senator, remember that?
Yes.
He actually,
You're welcome, America.
to his credit, he actually promoted GLERL and,
Good.
tried to get funding for the study of the lake blooms. And, he fought for Ohio when he was our senator. But now that he's vice president, he doesn't seem to care anymore. He won't respond, and he doesn't, he would not make any comment on it. He's just like, well, if Trump wants it, that's what we're going to do. If the mumps want it, if Musk and Trump want it,
Right.
that's what we're doing. So he's kind of tossed us all into the algae-choked lake, and it's not good. Not good at all. So, and I don't have a, amelioration on that. I don't have a but. No, there's no but. They just slashed the budget, and we're going to get less reliable data and less of it. Next story. Inside Climate News, May 24th. Moore vetoes key Maryland climate studies, reversing course on environmental justice commitments. This is Democratic Governor Wes Moore of Maryland, and he vetoed a bill that would have created a whole bunch of studies of global warming, including there's something called the Renew Act, and that was a report on the total cost of greenhouse gas emissions. That study would have cost $500,000. Also, there was a study on the social and economic benefit versus cost of all these data centers.
So our new plan for global warming in Maryland is to put our hands over our ears and yell la 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 la. We can't hear you.
Kinda.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
plan.
And his office claims this is just strictly an economic thing. Oh, we just don't have the money right now to do this. But in actuality, all these studies were being funded by something called the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which is a fund created by penalizing Maryland's electric utilities for when they fail to meet their renewable energy targets. So it's a separate fund. The money is already sitting there. In fact, it's got $300 million sitting there. And so the idea that this $500,000 for this RENEW Act study, that the state doesn't have the money for it, I mean, the money is literally sitting right there in a separate account. And this upset a lot of environmental groups, a lot of citizens groups that felt betrayed because there was no warning. He didn't give any kind of back and forth, like I'm thinking about vetoing this because I don't like this or that. It was just everybody was going along full speed, and he just vetoed it with no warning. So this is people are basically feeling betrayed in Maryland, and it's quite possible that the veto will be overridden because the bill passed with more than 3/5 of the state legislature voting for it, and 3/5 is the veto override number in Maryland. So unfortunately, this seems to be part of a pattern with the Democrats, that it started with California's Governor Newsom when he reversed himself on nuclear power and basically kept Diablo Canyon open, even though it's the most expensive power and one of the least reliable sources of power in California. And it seems like once they do the evil thing, that first evil thing, it sort of gets easier and easier to slide deeper into the evil.
I had a canvasser come to my neighborhood, I think last fall, and he was all, trying to convert me to be a Democrat, and he was like, "Oh, but nuclear power is safe now." Like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, no.
And then he says, "Oh, but we need it as part of our plan." No, we don't.
No. So
goodbye.
yeah. So, I mean, the Dems on
Take
environmental
your dusty party and keep walking, dude.
Yeah. It was. Biden was. He's the most pro-nuclear president in history, and
Yep.
Obama was not far behind him. Now, to be clear, the Democrats are still better on the environment than the Republicans. There's no question about that, because Republicans are also pro-nuclear, but the Democrats keep getting worse. As the Republicans lower the bar more and more, the Democrats are like, oh, we just have to be better than the Republicans, and that level is getting so low that
So we can get worse now.
they're
Yay.
they're getting pretty bad.
God.
And just a final note, when I was going to Western New York last week, I picked up a book on CD. I picked up Al Franken's A Giant of the Senate, which was very interesting. It was done in 2016, excuse me, just after Trump got elected the first time, and just before Al Franken left the Senate under a cloud of scandal from his
I remember that.
Senate, from his Saturday Night Live days as a comic. But listening to that tape, or that book on tape, and I got to say, I thought it would be like a 2-hour thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was 10 hours.
Boy.
10 hours of Al Franken, if you could imagine that. But I listened to the whole thing.
Are you okay?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, but how do you know?
Not sure. Yeah.
So, but in all that, I heard essentially why the Democrats are being so, why they have done so poorly since then. And that is that he would bring up the quote unquote liberal perspective, like, for example, universal single payer health care, right? Which 80% of the people in the U.S. wanted at that time, and more than 70% still want, because, we see all the other countries in the world and we know they've got it better than us. And so he talked about the Obamacare thing, but he talked about it. He mentioned the idea of universal single payer, and he just said, well, some people, like Bernie Sanders, wanted universal single payer, but we didn't have the votes. And then he went on. That was it. That was his whole discussion of what actually needed to happen. And that keeps happening with the Democrats on issue after issue, that, again, they just need to be a little better than the Republicans, and they feel that's all they need to do. But unfortunately, this time around, what's happening is that's not working. The Democrats have even lower approval rating than Trump, even though everybody in the country right now, the majority of the people feel Trump is terrible, and especially environmentalists, because he's horrible on the environment. So what the Democrats in the U.S. need to do is take a lesson from the Labour Party in Australia, and they came out against nuclear power and for the environment, and they were very positive about it, and they wiped out their Republican analog. They completely dominated in the elections. That may not happen, even though Republicans are so terrible this time, because the Democrats are being considered even worse. So get your act together, Democrats. That's what I'm saying. All right, that's it for this show. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Joe DeMar.
And Rebecca Wood.
And we are signing off.